Today I want to talk about the 7 steps to crushing it at networking. Now, I'm going to start by admitting something to you. I have a little bit of social anxiety. Every time I go to a networking event, I question my life. I wonder if someone's going to be murdering me while I'm there and if I'm going to die of humiliation and whether it would be a better idea for me to just jump off the nearest bridge. It's really bad. I'm very scared of networking. I've gotten better over the years, and some of the things I'm going to tell you today have helped me tremendously in networking properly. Is networking important? Absolutely. Despite the fact that you might want to stay at home safely behind your social media network and your computer in your home office or whatever it is, it's going to be very important that you go out and meet strategic people in your industry. So, networking is important because you're going to get good referrals. The people that see you at these events are going to remember your face, your title, your name, and they're going to be able to hand off your name to someone else who might need your help and your services. So as important as building a website is, as building an online brand is, it's very important to have face-to-face conversations with people. They will become your best referrers, if that's a word. So 7 steps. Step number 1, choose your networking events strategically. And I have 2 hints on this one. The hint number 1 is don't go to events where a bunch of people just like you are going to be meeting together unless you're genuinely there to learn something like better user experience and going to, because you're a UX designer and you want to go learn about user experience. If you're there to network and get business, you need to go to places where people who need your services will probably be attending. And that may be out of your comfort zone because it's clients rather than your fellow peers, but that is what I recommend. Go places where you think that people who will need your services will be attending the event. The second part of that, I recommend going to evening events rather than morning events. A lot of times I find these morning events are like early in the morning before work. People are tired. They want to drink coffee. They're really there just to hand out business cards, and they're not there to get to know you or to really become part of your network. Evening has alcohol. Grab a beer, grab a glass of wine, and if you have social anxiety, this is great because having a glass of wine or having a beer before you head in to the wolves is really helpful. And people tend to be a lot more open, a lot more relaxed. They're not in a hurry. They are there to get to know you, and they can be a lot more interesting and more honest in the evenings. So pick strategic events, and also pick events in the evening where people are more relaxed and they're having a glass of wine, they're having something to drink. Number 2, find somebody there that you know. Okay, if you're going to an event and you don't know anyone, but you tend to get a little nervous about these networking events, I highly recommend that you look at the list, whether it's on Meetup or LinkedIn or whatever, and find someone that you might possibly know or that you want to get to know. Reach out to them, send them a simple message like, hey, I see you're going to this event tomorrow. I'd really like to hook up with you. I've seen that you have this kind of service, or that you're really interested on this, or I read your blog here. I'd like to get to know you. This way, when you walk into the building, you have somebody that you know you can walk to and you can say hi to, because it can be quite scary to just walk in and not know anybody. The second part of that is once you see that person that you know, be sure to talk to them, but don't stay on them too long. You need to find other people to talk to as well. So what I find is really helpful in this part of it is once you've talked to the person that you do know, ask them for a referral to someone else, and they will often find somebody in the room that they think you might benefit from knowing and walk up and introduce you to that person. And therefore you haven't had to do that awkward thing where you just stand there like a deer in the headlights hoping that someone will talk to you. You've actually had somebody introduce you to the next person. Once that person has talked to you for a little while and you find you need someone new, you ask that next person for a referral to someone else, and you continue on meeting people that the last person you talk to thinks that you should talk to next. Step number 3 is focus on potential customers. This is not the time to focus on people that like World of Warcraft just like you. This is not the time to just be talking to a cute girl in the room, unless they're important for your business. This is the time to find potential customers. So I want you to be out there looking for people that could be a partner, a strategic customer, a strategic referral for you, a hire, whatever, and focus on those people. You are here to do business. If you're there for networking and just getting to know people as friends, you're at the wrong event. This is business, branding, and networking. Number 4, give them a reason to call you back later. When you're talking to them, you can definitely start by talking about your personal things or something interesting that's related to that's a mutual interest, football or something like that. But be sure that while you're talking, you also give them hints on things that they may be able to use your services for, or vice versa. Make sure that you are talking about business and that you are giving them reasons to want to talk to you again later. The number 5 thing is be memorable and unique. So everybody has something unique about them. It can be a story that you've told people that's about business, or even something other crazy, like you went skiing this one time and I don't know, something crazy happened. For me, it tends to be that I'm one of the few girls in the room, because I often am at like startup events where there's a lot of, it's very male dominated. And so I will be memorable by being a girl, being kind of silly. I have blonde curly hair. Recently I was at CES in Vegas. There were like 10 girls there. I'm way underestimating, but it felt like there were no blonde curly hair girls, so I thought to myself, cool, that will be me, and that's how people will remember me. So I would tend to say something about how I was one of the only girls there, and I hope that that would help them remember that I was unique, and so they could remember to talk to me later. And the second part of that is, another way to help them remember is when you hand them your business card, don't just hand them the card straight up and it has your name on it and they'll probably not remember you. Write something interesting on there that had to do with the conversation you had. So it could be, and sometimes I did this, where I would say, Christy Harn, and underneath it be like blonde curly hair chick, so that people could remember who I was. And it's silly, but it leaves that impression with them. Oh yeah, she's the girl that wrote on my card. The other thing you could do is a story. For example, with one guy that I met, he liked this barbecue place in Charlotte, and he lived somewhere far away, and I had never gone to this barbecue place. We had this conversation about it. And so on his business card, the business card I handed to him, I wrote, let's meet up for barbecue next time you're in town. And that way he could remember that I was that girl that talked to him about the barbecue, when really I wanted to work with him on branding and services in the future. This was a way for me to become memorable to him. So make sure that you focus on potential customers and make sure that you give them something memorable so they can remember you, and then call you back later. Number 6 is alcohol. Use alcohol wisely. So, this is kind of a no-brainer, but when you're first starting out with networking, it's good to remember these things. As I said, you should go to networking events in the evening. That's very helpful and important. But when you're at a networking event, be sure not to drink too much. You need to be really on your game. You went all the way out of your way to go to this event and get to know people, so be sure that you use alcohol strategically. If you drink too much, you're going to start talking about things that aren't as interesting to people. You're going to start blabbing about something. You might start hitting on the waitress, or heaven forbid, an investor or somebody that you actually wanted to work with later. So be sure you use alcohol wisely. Now, on the flip side, if the person that you're talking to starts drinking too much, use that to your advantage as well. Not in the take them home kind of way, but more in the getting, better stories out of them. I mean, one time I had a guy drinking and talking to me, and he started telling me about how one of my employees didn't like working there anymore. Great. Good to know. I mean, that helped me out a ton, actually. I was able to go back and make sure that employee had a better work experience, and it was a win-win for everybody. And he would never have told me that if it wasn't a drinking event. Another time, I had a guy that I knew was drinking a lot, and I asked him a more serious question about the selling of their company, and I was able to find out some information that was a little bit more private and wasn't public information. And I did not use it against him, but it allowed me to learn something that I wouldn't have been able to learn if we had been at this, professional event and he hadn't been drinking. So use that wisely. Also be careful about yourself. Be sure that you don't drink too much. Then number 7, follow up quickly. Now remember how you've handed them that business card that has something memorable about you. That's great, but also be sure to put a note on your business card from them so that you remember them. Chances are, if you get 10 business cards that are really good and it has a name and it has an email address on it, you're barely going to remember what they needed from you, who they were, anything like that. So what I highly recommend is every time you take a business card from someone, pull out your pen and write a note on it. Say, needed help with branding, had a conversation about barbecue. And then when I go back later, I'm now able to, because I won't remember anything. I'll look at these cards and they'll all just be a blur. But I'll see it and I'll say, oh yeah, he needed help with branding. And we had that conversation. And so what I'll do is I'll then be able to say, hey Andy, nice to meet you. I loved talking to you about the barbecue place. Can't wait to go there. I'm reaching out because you mentioned you needed help with branding, and so I'd love to talk to you more about that. Hope to hear from you soon. Now I've written him a very personal email that remembers what he needed, even if he doesn't remember telling me, and I will be able to then continue the conversation with him while showing that I had actual interest in his business and in helping him. And so then the next thing to do is be sure to go to more networking events in the same field, because then you will become this mini celebrity who's often at events and people start really recognizing, and you will have more people that can refer you to more people. So the more you do it, the better it gets. So those are my 10 steps to crushing it at networking. If you have more steps for me that I didn't mention, I'd love to hear them. And keep up the good branding. Best of luck.